Hello, everyone. Thank you all for being with us today for this meeting. The theme of our meeting today is cheers, which is to use like before drinking when giving a toast, to wish someone or some people well, good wishes, or to thank people. And today I would like to have a toast to all of you, member of the Tigertales. I would like to have a toast to you for keeping our club strong and successful despite all the things we are going through. Cheers. And I also asked our speakers, Liberator and Table Topics Master, if there is something they would like to have a toast to, and you will hear their answers later. So to keep our meeting going, we need functionaries, and today we have 3 functionaries as usual: a timer, an accounter, and a grammarian. Our timer today is Destin, who's also Table Topics Master, and I would like to call upon Destin to remind us about the rules for the timing rule for the speeches.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. My role today as a timer is to keep track of the time for the meeting, for the speeches. So for the speeches, for example, for the prepared speeches, the icebreaker are 4 to 6 minutes. At 4 minutes, I will show my green background. At 5 minutes, the yellow background. At 6, the red background, and then the speaker will have 30 seconds to wrap up. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Destin. Now I would like to call upon the accounter, Kelly, who is also a speech evaluator. Thank you for doing that, Kelly. Tell us a little bit about her role as an accounter.
Sure thing. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Fellow Toastmasters and guests, tonight I'll be your counter. I'll be looking for filler words or repeat words that are not intended, and words such as and that I just used twice. So, or any other words that you can use as a filler to using another word or instead of a pause. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Kelly. And the third functionary is our grammarian, Alex, who is going to present his role.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Tonight I'll be the grammarian, which means I will be looking for uses of language that add power to your message or take away from your message. And the best way to do that is to use rhetoric. And so I'll be looking for rhetorical devices as well as good word choice and other ways that you can add powerful punch to your presentation. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Alex. And I would like to add that we have a word of the day today, which is jubilate, which is a verb. So I have a message from Kelly saying Scott is trying to get into the meeting. I don't know if we don't have a waiting room, so if he's trying to get into the meeting, should be easy, I think. Oh, we're gonna find out later. So thank you all. Now we are going to listen to our first speech, which is icebreaker speech, which will be given by a new member of our club that we are happy to have among us today, Junan. Evaluating Junan is Kelly. And Kelly, I would like to ask you, what are you expecting from Junan's speech?
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Tonight, Hunan, as we know, is going to be giving his first speech to our group, his icebreaker speech. And he has already sent me an evaluation form to fill out, which I appreciate. I'll be looking for his delivery of his speech, his confidence. I'm not sure whether or not he has notes to use tonight, so we will see if he hasn't memorized or not. So that could be, I'm getting a lot of so's here, so check it off my counter. Anyway, we're looking forward to what Hunan has to share tonight. in his icebreaker, as it is a getting to know you kind of speech, and I'm very confident that he will deliver it as well as he has with his table topics, and looking forward to what he has to share with us tonight.
Hey, Google.
Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Hey, Google.
Thank you very much, Kelly.
Send a message to 585-747-3297.
Hello, Scott. Do you have a question?
No, no, I'm in. I had some issues, but I'm in now, and I wanted to apologize to the group that I had issues.
Okay.
But
Thank you very much, Scott. So now I would like to introduce our first speaker of the day, Junan. And I asked Junan if there's anything he would like to have a toast to. And he told me that he would like to have a toast to all of us. He would like all of us to be healthy and have a happy life. Thank you very much, Junan. And the title of his speech is A Little Bit About Myself. A little bit about myself, Junan.
Thank you, Hussein. Hi, everyone. This is my first speech. I'm going to take the chance to briefly introduce myself and my life journey so far, so everyone can know me better. First of all, my name is pronounced as Jun An. So J-U-N as Jun, A-N-S-N. I know it looks a little bit like Spanish, so sometimes people confuse with it, but it's just coincidence. It's totally not. I'm a typical Chinese. Actually, I think I should give this speech much earlier. It's all because of my tardiness that made it so late. I have been being tardy probably since I was born. I grew up in a small town in China. When I was in my elementary school, I back home from school usually around 4 p.m. every weekday. After that, I played with neighborhood kids, watched animations, ate dinner, and even watched TV shows with my parents. After all these, that's the time that I finally got started with my homework, which was usually 9 p.m. already. And I usually finish it around 10 to 11 p.m. At that time, my family wasn't rich at all. We had only one bedroom, and it also served as the living room. So the time when I finished my homework was the time when my family could sleep. Well, my parents were very worried about me. If he has to study until 11 p.m. to catch up with other kids in elementary school, what time will he make in high school? Sometimes even worse, I have to left something to the other morning since I made it too late and have to sleep. So as you can imagine, in the next morning, when all the other kids carrying their school bags, walking happily to the school, I was there busily working on my homeworks, and my mom had to feed me meanwhile, as I have no free hands and no time for breakfast. Sometimes my mom helped out, and we worked in parallel on my homeworks. I don't even want to mention in summer or winter break, I always left all my homework to the very last day to finish all of them. It was painful. Well, here I want to say special thanks to my mom. She's a high school teacher, and during these days, she woke up early, prepared my breakfast, and had to ride her back 25 minutes to her school. Really busy morning for her. Back to me, the reason I have to finish my homework was I felt embarrassed if the teacher criticized me in front of the public for not finishing homework. She always valued me as the top student in the class. However, after I grew up a little bit, I changed my way of learning, and I don't care about homework or teachers' opinions on me anymore. So those never happen again. In 2012, I started my college, and the department had a 2+2 joint program between the university in China and another university in Georgia, USA. Here, 2+2 means after students finish their first two college years, they have the choice of either they want to continue their education in China in the same school, or they can transfer to the US to finish the last 2 years. I have to mention here, the living expense in the US is much expensive than it is in China. especially in college tuition, in which the US is about 20 times higher. But the lucky thing was China got a boost in its economics in recent 2 decades. So was my family. So the tuition was affordable. I thought this might be a good opportunity to see what another country speaking another language on the other side of the earth looks like. Well, most of my classmates didn't, but I decided to give it a try. I transferred to Georgia and finished my undergraduate there. At the beginning, I have to admit it was tough. It really took me time to adapt to the lifestyle and the language here. After that, I came to Rochester to pursue my master's degree. After graduation, I drove all the way to California and started my career there. And finally ended up here in Utah. I'm pretty satisfied with my current life and my occupation. Meanwhile, however, I feel I have been in the US long enough and I already gained everything I wanted from here. It's almost the time for me to consider going back to my home country, and I'm actively planning on it. As in the movie Forrest Gump, his mother says, life is like a box of chocolate. You will never know what you're gonna get next. I really wonder what's the next chocolate in my life will taste like. Back to you, Hassan.
Thank you very much, Julian, for this speech. I also love Forrest Gump, and I'm sure your future will be bright. So the next chocolate will probably be so sweet for you. So now we are going to take 1 minute to give to send a love note to Julian. Mr. Timer, 1 minute.
Oh, the audio now unmuted.
That's 1 minute, Hassan.
Thank you very much, Destin. Our second speaker is also going to give an icebreaker speech. He recently joined our club. His name is Scott. And evaluating Scott is Alex. And I would like to ask Alex what to expect, what he's expecting from Scott's speech.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Scott is going to be giving an icebreaker speech. That's a 4 to 6 minute speech that helps all of us get to know him a little bit better. And as an evaluator, I'll be looking for the strengths that he already has as a communicator and the direction that his communication journey is going to take him. So I'm looking forward to hearing his speech. And since he's got his hand raised, I'm just going to take the opportunity to ask if he's got a question or anything that he needs to raise.
Scott?
You're muted if you're speaking.
Bhakti, can you unmute Scott?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Sorry about that. My name is Scott Davis, and I am totally blind. And I am a friend of Dr. Max, or she's a patient of Dr. Max, and she, it got me into this group. I want to talk about being blind and the experiences of being blind, especially when it comes to being robbed. because I want to show people that people who are blind or have a disability are very, vulnerable to, disability abuse. I was standing at the corner of Monroe and Averill Avenue waiting for the bus. And a guy walks up to me and says to me, "You work at ABVI, don't you?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And then we talk about, the different people we know and the and all that. And he says, "Well, can I see your ID?" And I wouldn't do anything. I just stood there and I said to him, "The ID is standing right in front of you, sir." And he's like, "No, can I see a picture of you?" And I'm like, "No, the picture is standing right in front of you." He goes, "If you don't do that, I got a knife." He goes, "So, you know what I mean?" So, and I could feel his hand reaching for my wallet. And I tried to resist him. And he said to me, "Do you want me to grab that knife?" And he was swearing. That's why I left out swear words. So please be understanding. But and I'm gonna need help with my timing because I'm not sure of how 4 to 6 minutes is. But he says, "Well," so I whip out my phone, and tonight, this was a couple of years ago before I had the smartphone for the blind, which is geared for stuff for the blind. And he says, "If you call your friend, I'm gonna stab you." You know what I mean? So I did call him, and no, I did not get my wallet back, but I did learn a big lesson. That is that the blind are very prone to abuse, especially robbery. Thank you to Toastmasters for allowing me to be in your group and for Disability to Talk. Have a great night. Was that too long?
No.
So our timer could probably let you know, but you do still have a few more minutes.
Yeah, I do want to put in a couple more things with that. So
Sure.
my
So
friend,
our timer is going to unmute and say the 4 minute, 5 minute, and 6 minutes. So you'll hear from the timer when you hit your time.
thank you, and I apologize to Hussein and the other Toastmasters,
Mhm.
but as I said, being blind, it's kind of hard to estimate time. Many people are, it's like they can look at the clock. I use audio because I have also a mild learning disability. I I had a very major learning disability when I was a kid, but you grow out of it. When you, how would I say it? When you were, when you get older, it's like growing out of your pants or growing out of a shirt. Do you know what I mean? Well, you have to think about these things, especially with the blind. I know we as the blind people are a small community, and I do use that word community, because I think that people with disabilities are a community. Um, but going back to being blind and being robbed,
4 minutes.
but going back to being robbed, that's something that I think that not just the blind, but all people are, into, you know what I mean? But, you gotta, just really watch who you hang out with and, what you're doing. And again, I thank the Toastmasters for allowing me this time to speak because, as I said tonight, it's my first night in the group, and I am Catholic primarily, but I am a lay level deacon in the Lutheran Church. I want to work on my speaking skills because I want to still give homilies, but I want to, not take too long in the homilies. I hope I didn't touch a boundary that would be too, how do I say it, where it's too sticky at the top.
Scott?
I am finished. That's why I stopped.
Okay. Thank you very much, Scott, for this speech. We are so happy to have you in our club. And I would like to once again to tell you, welcome to our club. And now,
Thank you. Let me you.
yeah, I really like your speech. I'm giving you feedback. I really like your speech. I really love the way you show your vulnerability and express, things we probably don't know about, as you said, your community. I really like that. I don't know if anyone has feedback for Scott.
I will share my feedback as an evaluator, so I'm looking forward to that.
Xavier, Bhakti, do you have a feedback for Scott?
Absolutely. Wonderful work. I know you're definitely still learning all the cues and stuff, but I think you're definitely a good fit for our club. It's all about sharing our stories here, however we came from. We have people from all over the world, so we bring a vast experience, and yours is very valuable to what we have here because a lot of us are students and don't have too much interaction personally with the blind community at all. So RIT has a pretty big deaf community, but even still, it's just different. So I just loved what you shared tonight.
Thank you, Xavier, for this feedback. Bhakti, do you want to say something?
I'll agree with Xavier here. At RIT, we do have a large deaf community. So personally, I wasn't aware of the struggles that blinds are facing, especially the one that you mentioned, getting robbed. That is something that didn't occur to me. So it was quite eye-opening to hear your story. And I'm glad that you have joined your club. Here, we all share our own stories, and I'm very excited to hear what you have got next. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, Bhakti, and thank you again, Scott, for your wonderful speech. Now we are going to move on to our third speech, which will be given by Xavier. Evaluating Xavier is Bhakti, and I would like to ask Bhakti to tell us a little bit about the project and the objectives of the project. Over to you, Bhakti.
So Xavier is currently on the engaging humor pathway. He is already one of the most humorous person in the club. So I'm very excited for his speech tonight. He is at level 1 of his pathway, and his project is researching on a topic. So he has researched on some topic which he'll be telling us about tonight. Looking forward to hearing and laughing at your speech, Xavier. Back to you, Hassan.
Thank you very much, Bhakti. So I asked Xavier if there is anything he would like to ask to have a Toast 2, and he told me that he would like to have a Toast 2 connection that we have kept going virtually during the pandemic. And I remember some weeks ago we shared a wonderful dinner together because we are going back in person now. And the title of his speech is it's a game time. It's a game time, Xavier.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters and guests. I want you to close your eyes and imagine this. Your alarm clock goes, you hit it off, and you're just waking up. You look outside and it's a beautiful day. The sky is clear and sunny, the birds are chirping, and you say, I cannot wait for another day of school. How many of you guys had that experience? I see no one. Oh, no, everyone raised their hand, which I was very surprised at because that is not me. That might have been on the weekend, but on a school day, it was dark outside. I wanted to just go back to sleep, and I said, I cannot wait till school's over. And it didn't even start yet. Here, I want to tell you why. And maybe what happened is every other country's school is just so much better, and the American school system's bad, because that's the one that I know. America, here's what happens. We have the highest amount of money paid per pupil, but somehow we don't have anywhere even close to the highest education. We're not even in the top 20, to be honest. And what happens is, through bureaucracy, government, our system is all about the test. So teachers prepare you for the test. Students prepare out of fear of what the test could bring. It could set your future arc crazily. And I think this is a broken system. Brendan actually sent me a message an hour ago with a quote that I think goes very well. It's by the great Carl Sagan. You go to talk to kindergartners or first grade kids, you find a class full of science enthusiasts. And they ask deep questions. They ask, what is a dream? Why do we have toes? Why is the moon round? What is the birthday of the world? Why is grass green? These are profound, important questions. They just bubble right out of them. You go to talk to 12th grade, and there's none of that. They've become incurious. Something terrible has happened between kindergarten and 12th grade. I could go on about how the school system's broken and how it's irreparable, but there's some great things happening out in the world. And I would much rather highlight these things, encourage us to move in these directions instead of just busting on a broken system. My answer to that is that a lot of our schooling, in America at least, I don't know too much about other countries, is very passive. You go, you sit down, you listen to a lecture, you do a worksheet, and you take a test hoping for the best. Instead, what I propose is various ways of active learning, that we get up and we do. We learn by failing, and by failing, we learn more and do more and grow more. I've had ideas and dreams of building a makerspace, but today I want to talk about game time. Game time. The way that I grew up was on board games, and if you didn't hear that speech, definitely watch it. But that's probably about 10% of the board games I own. I couldn't carry them all. If not, I'd be like this. And the reason I say board games, like video games, they have their spot, but honestly, we're on technology enough. And if this year hasn't showed us that, I don't know if we're ever going to learn that we need some real sit-down, face-to-face games. First off, how would this even work? Like, what is it? And I want to talk about examples that are already happening in schools. First off, there's gamification in schools. And what this is instead of passively learning, teachers assign dues to their kids, that they'll go out, they'll research, they'll do tasks. And to go on to the next level is the goal, to gain this experience. And at the end of all of this experience is prizes. That's gamification. And the reason it works is because you have focused goals along with clear metrics to hit. And then the students have this indirect way of getting to the goals, that they can't just sign a sheet and directly say, okay, I got this goal. They have to do things, and then indirectly they get to their goal. Game time is the next level of that. It focuses on the fun of the games, and you learn on the side. It's almost sneaks in there. For example, I could do addition and understand math and earn 20 XP points. but I'd much rather have Superman punch Joker in the face by using addition. That is what gets me in. So gamification can be used on anything. Actually, that's the way Alex set up our whole CFC work program, is gamification. And it works pretty well. People do really good stuff. But I'd rather start with the fun and then have all that game stuff in the bottom. Some homeschools currently use this. They'll design their curriculum around these board games. And it works out very well for these homeschool kids. But it's such a small few. The reason it's not accepted in big schools is because bureaucracy. But beyond that, teachers, it takes so much more work because they have to learn all these games and then implement these tiny critiqued lessons in there. They have to deal with egos and people just getting bored. But I say it's worth the struggle because some people would say, Xavier, life is not all fun and games. You can't just wake up every morning, see the clear sky, and be excited to play games all day. I tell you, that's exactly what life is if we can figure out the system to make it. We made this statement that said, no, this can't happen, instead of saying, could this happen, and finding a way. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Xavier, for this speech about education. And you're probably right. We should have more games at school. So now we are going to take 1 minute to send feedback to Xavier. It's a timer. Thank you, Mr. Timer. We have listened to our 3 speakers of the day. Now we are going to move on the next section of the meeting, which is table topics. And our table topics master today is Destin. I asked Destin if there's anything he would like to have a toast to, and he told me that he would like to have a toast to life and also to the amazing people and things that make it enjoyable. Please join me in welcoming the table topics master, Destin.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the second part of our meeting, the table topics. And the theme of the day is cheers. And as Hassan said earlier, cheers is a word we use to mean goodbye, stay well, best wishes, or sometimes no problem. This one I learned it, that's just today. And for today, the table topics, I will have both questions and pictures. So if you want a question, just say question number 1, 2, 3. I have 5 of them. If you want a picture, just say picture 1, 2, 3. I have 5 of them as well. And at the end of the table topics, we're gonna vote for the best table topic. And in order to qualify for the best table topics, we have to respect some rules. And without further ado, I'm gonna ask to our functionaries to give us the rules for the table topics. Let's start with our grammarian.
Alex. Oh. Hi, everybody. We have a word for the day. And our word for the day is jubilate.
It is jubilate.
The word for the day is jubilate. and it has the same root word as jubilee, which is a celebration. So jubilate is to celebrate. So you rejoice. I could go into the history of the root word of that, but I won't because we don't have time for that. So jubilate, celebrate. So let's jubilate while we have our table topics. Mr. Table Topics Master.
Thank you, Mr. Grammarian. And now let's ask to our timer the rules for the table topics. So for the table topics, the rules, the timing rule is 2 to 1, sorry. Why did I keep forgetting? So for the table topics, the timing rule will be 1 to 2 minutes. And at 1 minute, I'm gonna show my green background. At 1 and 30 minutes, I'm gonna show my yellow background. And at 2 minutes, I'm gonna show the red background. And then the speaker will have 30 seconds to wrap up. So let's dive right in. Who's gonna be our first speaker for the table topics? Bhakti. Hi, Bhakti, how are you doing?
I am good.
So do you want a question or a picture?
I'll have a picture.
All right, which one? Picture 1, 2, 3, or 5?
3 or 5. Okay, I'll pick up 5 then.
Okay, picture 5. There you go.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Table Topic Master. This picture looks like let me add the spotlight. Looks like the peanut butter and the knife are jubilating with the bread. And I'm not sure what exactly they are celebrating. I guess the knife finally was able to correctly spread the peanut butter over the bread slice, I suppose. Now that I think about it, it doesn't even look like peanut butter. It looks like jelly, and the peanut butter is already on the bread spread. So I guess the task was to add jelly onto this bread slice so it can be a nice PB&J. But oh my God, as the more I look into the picture, the more it looks like the knife and jelly are struggling, but the bread is happy with just the peanut butter that it has. That is how I prefer my toast as well. I just like to have peanut butter, no jelly. So, oh my God, the more I look into it, the more confusing it gets. And now the screen is yellow. So I guess that's the end of the story for PB&J. With that, I would like to conclude my speech. Back to you, Mr. Table Topic Master.
Thank you, Bhakti. That was so funny. Who is next? Xavier. Picture or question?
Give me a question, please.
All right. 1, 2, 3, or 5?
2.
Okay. Have you ever been asked to raise a toast? In which occasion? That's your question, Xavier.
Have I ever been asked to raise a toast? Not officially. I have taken it upon myself to raise toast before. Not in the same way that the jam and the knife just raised the toast, in a very traditional sort of method to honor people. And I'm going to take the same occasion to do it tonight because I have something that I'd like to jubilate with all of y'all tonight, and was hoping for some sort of question along those lines. So today received official word that the startup that Preetam and I have been doing for feels like forever now, but it's been like 2 years. We got a $256,000 grant from the government. So your tax dollars hard at work, making some cool technology coming to an area near you. And I still have time. So let's raise our glasses and hope that the time ends perfectly in sync with this. No, it did not. All right. Or Destin's playing with me. That's okay. Other times that I've raised toast, or I'm looking forward to raise a toast, is my roommate is getting married in just a month. And I get to be one of his groomsmen. And now it's yellow. Okay. Destin is playing with me, and it's going back to you.
Thank you, Xavier. Who's gonna be next? Kelly. Hi, Kelly.
Hi. I
Picture
can't stop
or,
laughing at everybody else's, so
picture or question?
I think I'll do a picture.
Which number?
3.
1, 2, 3. All right. Here you go.
Oh, wow. Thank you, Mr. Table Topic Master, fellow Toastmasters. This looks like a jubilant feast. I cannot wait to be a part of this. I'm over on the side preparing another dish because I don't really like wine, and I let everybody else do the toast for this amazing feast that we are celebrating the end of COVID restrictions in the home. And we've got pasta, we've got avocados, we've got tomatoes, a whole array of food that hopefully everyone can benefit from and enjoy. And I brought the dessert, which is going to be a pineapple upside down cake. After we finish this, I'll bring it to the table and we'll continue to jubilate over the end of COVID restrictions in this home because we've all been vaccinated and it's okay now to have small groups with this party over food. I'm so excited to be a part of it, and there's lots of yummy, good tasting, delicious foods to enjoy tonight. I'm so glad I was able to be a part of this feast, and here's a toast to ending some of these restrictions and moving forwards in our lives and being able to interact in person again. Back to you, Mr. Table Topics Master.
You are muted.
Okay, I was saying, let me ask to the timer if you have time for one more question. So, Mr. Timer, do we have time for one more question? Oh, yes, we do. One last question. Who's gonna be next?
Here.
Okay, Roberta, hi.
So I'm a little late to the game. Just run by
So-
real quick. I get a picture or a question?
Yes, you have to choose. So picture 3 and 5 has been selected, and
Okay.
question 2 has been selected.
All right.
So you can pick those.
I'll go with, is there a question 5?
I have, yes, question
Okay.
5. So my question for you will be, do you often say cheers to yourself? When was the last time that you say that?
When was the last time I said cheers to myself?
Yeah.
Great question, Mr. Table Topics Master. The last time I said cheers at all was in an email as a sign off. I stole that from my undergraduate research advisor in signing emails to people that I felt awkward saying sincerely or love, because that's probably not a great way to sign off on a professional email most of the time. The last time I said it to myself, though, would probably be the last time I had something to rejoice over, experience joy over, which, if I think back, the last week would have been the second time my 3-year-old actually asked to go to the potty before going to the potty. This sounds simple for all of you college educated individuals, but it's definitely something to jubilate over when you are in the throes of parenting. And I realize that's what all of my stories have to do with. That's why I had to take a Toastmasters hiatus. I needed to build up some new story material. But I think in that moment, I said cheers to myself because there's hope. We're turning the corner. Just like all of you who are well potty trained, I'm hopeful that this 3-year-old's well on his way. And it's those little moments to be able to cheer and rejoice and say, cheers, Mom. It's not so bad after all. Mr. Table Topics Master, back to you.
Thank you very much, Roberta. So this closes our second section of the meeting. I'm gonna ask the functionaries if all the speakers use, Mr. Grammarian, did all the speakers use the word of the day?
I am pretty darn sure that everyone used the word of the day, although I'm very bad at listening for it. But I thought I heard it from everybody.
All right. And Mr. Timer, was everybody on time within the time window? Yes, all the speakers are qualified for the prize. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Mr. Table Topics Master and Mr. Timer at the same time. Now we are going to vote for the best table topics. We have 4 speakers, Bhakti, Xavier, Kelly, and Roberta. So we are going to vote for one of them as the best table topics. So now we are going to move to the next session to our meeting, which is the evaluation section. And this section will be led by the general evaluator, who is today Matt Benedict, who has an assistant, the distinguished Toastmaster Hazel. So now I would like to call upon our general evaluator, Matt, for the evaluation section.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Sorry that I showed up late today. Had a little miscommunication in our household. A little bit of chaos going on right now, but it's great to be with you to witness the speeches and that wonderful table topics. So we're here now for the evaluations, which I think we all in this group know. This is maybe the best gift that Toastmasters has to offer the world. The ability to listen and give and receive helpful feedback. So we have our evaluators to help us do that. We were introduced to them earlier in the meeting. And we also can get a refresher from Destin, our timer, on the timing rules for the evaluations, please, Destin.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. So for the evaluation, the timing rule is 2 to 3 minutes. So at 2 minutes, I'm gonna show the green background, at 2.5, the yellow background, and at 3 minutes, the red background, and then the speaker will have 30 seconds to wrap up. Back to you, Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you, Justin. And we will move right into our first evaluation. And please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe to evaluate Unan's speech, we have Mrs. Kelly Mack.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator, fellow Toastmasters, welcome guests, and especially Junon. I admit that I was calling you Hunan. So I thank you very much for correcting us from the very get-go on the correct pronunciation of your name. I think that was actually a very wise thing to do, because that's the first thing we really do know about you is your name. And if we're saying it wrong, maybe it doesn't hurt that much, but it's nice to know that we can be more personal by knowing how to pronounce it correctly. I think that was a great way to start in with your speech. I'm going to talk about 3 things that I think you did really well at, a couple of things you might be able to improve on in your future speeches, and we'll wrap it up. The first thing I think you were really good at doing is being vulnerable. In an icebreaker speech, it can be very easy to talk about the superficialities of ourselves. Maybe, how many sisters or brothers we have, how the weather is, etc. But you chose to talk about your homework procrastination, and I can definitely relate to that, as many of us probably could, and that it started at an early age. You talked about your mother and how she tried to help you through these things. You talked about your education experience and about things that I think were a layer deeper than the superficialities. So that was really powerful. And I know that when you can start one of your speeches that way, that all the rest that follow will continue to be deep and continue to show us more about your heart and your story. The next thing I think you did a really great job at is including humor. I was laughing here and there, and being able to sprinkle humor throughout your speech is a very important way to keep your audience captivated so that we can continue to connect with you, and it's very relatable. For example, talking about your homework, I didn't start it till 9 and finished at 11 at night, and nobody could go to sleep until then. Talking about leaving it to the last day, things like that. So that was a very powerful way to include it. Also, the third thing I think that you were really good at is being descriptive. You talked about your mom, how she was a high school teacher, she helped you with preparations. I feel like I have a good idea of who your mom is because of what you shared today and the relationship that you have with her. Also, you talked about this 2+2 program. Some people maybe have never heard of that, and you were really good at explaining all of those details about it. The couple things you could improve on is maybe using your space a little bit better. You were right in the middle the whole time, and maybe for some points you could move to one side of the screen, then the other. You could move forwards on an exciting point or backwards. Your vocal variety, which would talk about maybe having a conversation with your mom. You could raise your voice and be high when you're talking about your mother, or have a conversation with her in that. And finally, I just want to congratulate you on being bold and courageous and getting in front of us to share your icebreaker tonight. And we're looking forward to the future speeches you have to share with us. Back to you, Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you for that evaluation, Kelly. Some great things for Junon to work with in his next presentation. For our second speaker, who was Mr. Scott Davis, looking forward to hear some expert evaluation from Alex Turner. Alex.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator, fellow Toastmasters, and especially Scott. Thank you so much for your icebreaker tonight. You wouldn't be familiar with Toastmasters, but it's always our tradition to give a standing ovation at the end of someone's first speech in front of an audience. Now, this is a Zoom meeting, but you did give your first speech in front of an audience and you did a wonderful job. So thank you for standing up and sharing vulnerably about your experience. That's what Toastmasters is all about. So thank you for that. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the strengths that you've brought into the speech and the direction for your communication journey as you make your way through Toastmasters. So you start out with a strength in storytelling, that you came ready to tell this story about you on the corner there in front of ABVI and that experience of how vulnerable you are to the world because you can't see what the person who's standing there on the sidewalk with you is doing, and how that experience felt to you. And that was a vulnerable story for you to share. And the way that you led us through it and the way that you had the dialogue back and forth, those are all elements of a really engaging story. So you bring that as a strength already. Some of the things that you'll be able to work on as you craft that storytelling is the organization of the story and the vocal variety for us to be able to hear the different voices and to, as you organize your thoughts more. But you already have all the raw materials of a really great storytelling speech. One thing that is going to be extremely important for you as you go through your Toastmasters journey is going to be a mentor. That being able to have that call with a mentor before the meeting to talk about all the formalities of a speech, how you'll be introduced, and to practice your speech so that we can hear it and you can answer some of those questions like, is this going to be a topic that's too sticky for Toastmasters, or can I talk about this? That a mentor is going to be able to help you answer all of those questions so that you can confidently go into your speech. And that's the number one thing that's going to help you along this communication journey, is that confidence. And you've already got it because you're coming into this meeting and you're ready to share your story already. Sharing the very first meeting as you're becoming a member, making sure that you're on the agenda to give your icebreaker. You already have that confidence. And that mentor is going to be able to help to direct that confidence and to help you feel even more sure of when you're getting up to give your speech and how that's going to work and who's going to introduce you. All of those things, all those questions are going to help you to feel even more confident as you communicate more. And we will continue to work as a club to find ways that we can be inclusive and we can make sure that all the cues that we have, like in the timing or our love notes, we're finding ways to make it so that you can hear those things and that you can be a part of every part of our meeting. So thank you so much for joining our club and for sharing your icebreaker tonight. I'm so looking forward to hearing your next speech.
Thank you, Madam Turner. Wonderful thoughts to share for a second icebreaker of the day. And for our third and final speech that was brought to us by Xavier, we're looking for another expert evaluation from Bhakti, please.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator, fellow Toastmasters, and especially Xavier. You started off with a very engaging question, which is always a great way to start your speech and get the audience engaged. But not only that, you had great voice modulation within your question. And I like that you showed a genuine surprise when you were not expecting the answer that you might have expected, that not everybody is excited everybody is excited to go to school. I like that you showed genuine surprise in your face. And you chose a very serious topic of American education system and bureaucracy and made it and decided to make it humorous. And it was a success. Your speech was very humorous, and it was also very well organized. But the best thing I like about your speech was you used your space excellently and your gestures were on point. I could tell you were aware of the space that you were using, so your gestures were limited to that space. Another way to get your audience very engaged, humor and gesture. I also like that you described what American education system is like for someone like me who is from India and is not entirely aware of how the schooling works here. So I like that you described the education system here. Having said that, there was something else that you mentioned called, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, called CFC work program. Now, I don't know what that is exactly. So maybe if you could have described that as well, that would have been another plus point within your speech. And your speech, in the middle of the speech got a bit monotonous. There were not so many humorous line, and there were not as many voice modulation as I would expect. So it did get a little monotonous in the between, but you did pick it right back up with the end quote that I'm sorry, I cannot remember what was the end quote, but the energy was back, your modulations were back, your gestures were back. But if that could remain throughout the speech, that can make your speech from great to excellent. So in conclusion, good organization, good use of humor, good use of gesture, good use of space. Just one feedback, keep it consistent. With that, I will hand it back over to Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you, Bhakti. Another round of great feedback. To get some of the feedback from our functionaries, we're going to look first to our counter of the day to tell us what she heard and how we did in our filler words. What do you have for us, Kelly?
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. The most popular filler words for the night were so and ah. A couple of people to put things out to real quickly are myself. I used so, also and for a lot of filler words tonight. Hassan, you had one that I counted, but as Toastmaster, that's pretty impressive because you speak a lot. Junan, 2 so's. Alex, 3 so's, 1 Xavier, 3 2 repeat ands. Twice, twice, so 4 times. You spoke a lot tonight too, remember. And one more filler word that sometimes I think we don't catch on to is just. We put the word just as a filler. And I noticed you had done that about 3 times in your speech. Bhakti, you had 1 and 1 ah. Other than that, I did not catch it, or you're off the hook. Thank you for allowing me to be in this role tonight. Back to you, Mr. General Evaluator.
And thank you for filling that role tonight, Kelly. Next, let's hear how we did with our words of the day and our general use of the English language from our grammarian, Alex.
Hi, everyone. I am the grammarian for tonight, and I will admit I did a poor job. I focused on being our evaluator for Scott's Icebreaker, and so I was really focused on making sure that he got the feedback that he needed, and that meant I wasn't paying as much attention as I might otherwise do as the grammarian. But I do want to share a little bit more about what Kelly suggested about that word just. And as a grammarian and rhetorically, that word is part of a concept called hedging. It's something that we do when we're not feeling 100% confident in the thing that we want to say. Another way that we might do that is by couching what we say in, well, in my opinion, or kinda, or sorta, or maybe, or just. All of those words are ways that we can sort of take back what we want to say, like I just did right there. We reel it back in because we don't want to come right out there and say what we're saying, just in case somebody might feel like we're being too bold. Well, in Toastmasters, we're all about being just as bold as we want to be. And so getting rid of those words like just and sorta and kinda are ways that we can add power to our message and prevent our grammar from taking away from our message. That's my grammarian report for tonight. Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator.
And thank you 2 times, Alex. Lastly, how did we do against the clock today, Destin?
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. So the time report for the prepared speeches, all the speakers were within their time. 4:58 for Junan, 5:11 for Scott, 6:55 for Xavier. I am sorry for the table topics because I don't have the exact time for the people because I had to be table topics master and timer at the same time, but they were all in time. And for the evaluation, Kelly and Alex were over 3:30 seconds. Bhakti 2:55. That's it for the timer report. Back to you, Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you, Justin. And to wrap up the evaluation section, it's my privilege to offer some overall comments on the meeting. First, for myself, I showed up late and introduced the most chaos on any video screen here, so sorry for that. Thanks for your patience.
All right.
Also on that point, technology-wise and keeping the meeting moving, Zoom-wise, you guys do a great job. But don't let it go to your heads because I wouldn't expect anything less from a club at a tech school. The roundtable feedback for the second icebreaker, I don't know if that's a thing that normally happens. It didn't seem like the members were prepared for that. It's a great idea. I like it, assuming there's time built into the agenda for it. But it seemed like it caught some people off guard, so I wasn't exactly sure what was going on there. So either some communication ahead of time, hey, we're gonna have some roundtable feedback, or something in there. The unique challenges that Scott highlighted for us in making our meetings accessible to our blind community was wonderful, and special hats off to Destin for flexing in the moment to add some verbal feedback on the timing roll, and to Alex for working it into the evaluation, some specific thoughts and feedback there. So that was really great, and things to consider as we go forward. Pictures and table topics was brilliant. I personally have not seen that before. So Destin, really, really cool, really creative way to use the Zoom platform. So I was impressed. Oh, obviously the obvious one is the flexibility. Lots of changes from the agenda to what happened here in the meeting, a few less spaces than were expected, but overall did a great job adapting to it and making it a very worthwhile meeting and coming away with challenges and things to think about and things to improve on. So thank you for the opportunity to sit in, and I will turn the meeting back over to the Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Matt, for this evaluation. During the evaluation, we're probably going to use your feedback in order to improve our meetings in the coming weeks. Thank you for that. So we had table topics and we voted for the best table topic. And now it's my honor to announce the winner. Drum roll, please. The best table topic speaker of the day is Bhakti. Congratulations, Bhakti, and thank you for being our Zoom master, clap master, evaluator, and also best table topic speaker. You did everything. So thank you all for this amazing meeting. As Matt said, we didn't have many people. We had less people than we expected, but I would like to once again to thank you all of you for taking in 2 roles or more than that to make this meeting successful. Now I would like to turn back over to our president for the closing remarks. Bhakti.
Thank you, Hassan. Wonderful job as a Toastmaster. Before I proceed with my comments, Kelly would like to share some words, and I will hand over the mic to Kelly before I give the closing comments. Over to you, Kelly.
Thank you, Madam President. Very quickly, as most of you know, my project that I had done for level 4 was to collaborate with some other Toastmasters clubs. I went to the first one that I know of. It was called Daybreakers, and they meet on Thursday mornings from 7:30 to 9. I think it's the first, third, and fifth Thursday, if there is one, depending on the month. They're meeting all virtually right now. I think there were about 18 people there when I attended. So it's very well attended. It was very well organized. I really appreciated their welcomeness, and they have evaluation forms that they have everyone fill out for all of their speakers and all of their evaluators. They also had a couple different functionary roles that I wanted to share really quickly. So instead of the grammarian picking the word of the day, they had someone that they designated as a word watcher. And that was one role where they call it word watcher. They would introduce, they had 2 words of the day. So you could use 1, 2, or both words. And they would look for the word. And then they combined the grammarian and the counter role into one. And then they had a timer. So it wasn't any more functionary roles than we have, but just a different way to look at it and do it. So that was something different to be able to experience. And other than that, they're having a social gathering at the end of this month just for their club, but knowing that that's going on in some Toastmaster groups, that could be something maybe we could consider sometime in the summer, is meeting together, doing something socially perhaps within the group, and then maybe extending to other groups maybe by next summer. So I really had a good experience, appreciated what they shared. I do think the evaluation forms were a little bit longer than a minute. They only give you a minute to do it. So that was my feedback at the end, that maybe for new people, they give a little more time or explanation how to fill those out. Back to you, Madam President. And one more thing, Ruchi will be going to the next new meeting and sharing with us next time. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. I really appreciate your effort, Ruchi's effort, and Christine's to visit other clubs and give us some different perspective on how different clubs function. It's always good to know how we can change up our own meeting here at Tigertales. With that, I want to congratulate Junan and Scott for giving your very first speech. I know it can be very nerve-wracking, but I appreciate your courage for finally standing up and giving your first speech. I have a question for Scott. So since I know you cannot see, and sometimes our speakers love to have visual encouragement while they are giving speech, would you like to have some audio encouragement when you're giving some speech? Scott, are you here?
Betty, can you hear me yet?
Yes, I can hear you.
Miss back to you, whatever you want me to call you. Yes, please, on the audio feedback. And then when they do the individual at the end of the meeting, I'm gonna have a question for Hassan, you, and Kelly and Matt. So I'm gonna need some advice on the situation. I hope you guys can help.
Yeah, sure. We can help you out with your questions. Thank you, Scott. That is something I'll keep in mind the next time you're giving speech so that the club members can be giving some word of encouragement, or as the timer can suggest you what how the time is progressing and stuff like that. With that, I also want to thank everyone who took up multiple roles today. I know the agenda was bit off, but I always like that people are always welcoming and happy to take on the roles. Especially Alex had grammarian and evaluator, which I know is extremely difficult to keep track of. So thank you all the members who took up multiple roles tonight. With that, I will conclude tonight's meeting. If you want to participate for any speeches or roles, you can always contact Mr. Hassan, who is VPE till the end of the month. So with that, I would conclude tonight's meeting. Thank you everyone for joining tonight.